Are you?
All
We're
right.
good.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight we are meeting as a work session for the Southwick Conservation Commission. Informal meeting. It is not a hearing. So things are do not kind of follow the hearing aspect. So we can be a little bit less formal. Just behave yourself. That's all I'm saying. From Southwick Conservation,
was
today we have Dennis
appointed-
Clark, our coordinator. Yeah, Mehmet Mathanglu,
Yes.
Christopher Pratt, Dave McWilliams, and where's Jean? There she is. Jean
And
Nelson,
Jerry's here
Jerry
too.
Patria. And we have other people also attending.
Chris, we need the names of everybody. I have everybody but whoever this LENOVOT 440P is.
Lenovo.
That's a
Who?
laptop. I went to college with him.
Oh, good one. Good one.
That's the name of his computer.
Oh, okay.
Who is Lenovo?
I don't know.
Hello, Lenovo.
Please state your name.
Dennis, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's
Who is
Mike
it?
Ruscio. Mike.
Oh, Mike
Ruscio.
Rusco. All right.
Yeah, how you doing? All right. Yeah, I'm not really tech savvy, so you have to bear with me, but I'm here.
All right.
Mike
Thanks for coming,
Russo.
Mike. So
Okay.
we have our guest speaker tonight. Well, we have a couple of speakers, but our guest speaker,
Ben Mazzy.
Ben is here.
Yes, I am here. Hi, everybody.
Wonderful.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. All right, Dennis, I don't have my agenda up here, but I figured you're going to kind of be running the meeting anyway. Is Mr. Wally signing in? So I'll let you take over the reins from here and kind of guide our momentum.
All right. Well, this is just a work session. So we have Benjamin Mazzy from the Fish and Wildlife here, the wildlife biologist that is going to talk to us about possibly partnering up with the Commonwealth with a forest management plan that would incorporate the North Pond Conservation Area. We really need to have a forest management plan because the forest has just been left unattended for so long that to just let it go wouldn't be the right thing to do. So I'm gonna turn it over to Ben and listen to somebody who knows what he's talking about. Talk.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, so I can share my screen if you want. And I do have I can pull up a map maybe. But before I do that, maybe just see what folks' interests are. So the state has been doing a lot of work on what we own in fee. This site is ranked as one of the highest in the state for us, specifically for some of the rare plants and animals that are found there, which is a result of the glacial soils that are there from glacial Lake Hitchcock. So we have really sandy, droughty soils. Most of those in the state, at least inland in the state, have been developed because they're usually flat and they perk really well. So we did a bunch of work to support specifically grasshopper sparrows and grassland birds. Of all the avian species, they've showed the sharpest and steepest declines. So about 8 or 9 years ago, our agency, Natural Heritage Endangered Species, the Nature Conservancy, Mass Audubon, might be forgetting one organization, but they did a statewide analysis of all the places in the state that we could manage specifically for these rare birds in the plant communities that are associated with them. And Southwick WMA and one of our WMAs on the Cape, Francis Crane and Falmouth, ranked as the highest two in the state. because they were large, intact, and we could manage them specifically for these species. And they're relatively unique in that they need large open spaces with native vegetation. So the last 8 years, we've been sort of following that journey, and those folks that spend time on the WMA probably notice quite a bit of change from whenever it was abandoned from tobacco farming, and then some of the local kids and families took over with dirt bikes and made it to a dirt bike rink. So we've tried to work on eliminating that and reseeding. And because these birds need wide chunks of land, we removed some of those treed hedgerows that were in the middle of the WMA. So it essentially has become a warm season grassland, a native assemblage of different plants that really benefit these species. And so that's sort of what happened on the eastern end of the property. And then recently with this acquisition where we partnered with the town, what we owned in fee, we started doing some on the north end of that. There's a bunch of pitch pine, and there was some remnant scrub oak and little blue stem. And so we removed the generalist white pines and are hoping and seeded. And so our hope there, that northern chunk that's sort of open now, is that it'll come in as blue stem with pitch pine regeneration and oak as well. So, and then the 50 acres south of that, that's wooded, that the state owns in fee. There were some questions I talked with Dennis and Chris Pratt previously about the work that we're doing there. So we're going to do a timber sale in there, and we're going to focus on promoting oak regeneration and pitch pine in there. So what we're going to go in and do is remove the red maple. There's some black birch in there, and then the white pine. So those
are those all the trees that are marked? There's a bunch of trees with blue markings on them. Is that?
Yep. Those are the ones. So the idea there is to benefit. So the grassland is wide open, and what we want to do is have a sort of smoother ecotone transition into the forest, as opposed to like this really hard break. So along the edge, what we want to do is we'll probably remove 50 to 60% of the canopy there, so that will create sort of like a shrubland for the shrubland birds. So I talked about grassland birds are the steepest decline. The next cohort of species that are showing the steepest declines are shrubland birds, because we don't have a lot of shrubland on the landscape. So our idea is that we'll have grassland, a little bit of more shrubland with still some tree canopy, and then in the interior of it, we're just going to focus on we'll remove less of the canopy and just focus on removing some of those big old white pines. I don't know, some of them, if you walk through some of the property, you can see some of them are starting to senesce and fall over. A lot of them are well past having much benefit. That being said, we're still retaining some of, there's some groups of those large ones that will retain as remnants for snags and for trees for bears and things like that, so that some of those still be retained. But the idea is that white pine, red maple, black birch grow really well everywhere across the state. We have a really unique substrate at this site that can support really rare, not just rare in Massachusetts, but globally rare species in natural communities. So that's sort of what we're focused on the WMA. The grassland is the main body of work, but we also are trying to focus on supporting some of these other things like eastern towhees, prairie warblers. There's a bunch of rare insects and reptiles, amphibians that are associated as well. So it's a big ask, I think, for some people that have been on the WMA for a lot of years to sort of accept the fact that we've come in and changed the landscape so significantly in some portions. But what we try to indicate is that it's based in science. It's a unique circumstance because this property has a large intact area. It has the soils. It already has the species that we're interested in. So if people are patient, you can see what the main grassland, it looked pretty rough for a few years, has kind of grown into what we wanted to. And I think, you know, even our hunters, our constituencies that use the WMA to hunt were taken aback at first because we changed what they were used to for so long. But now it's one of their favorite places to go run their dogs, just because the cover is so good there. So as far as future management on our piece, and so these are all I'm just giving the general background kind of concepts and things to think about. And we can talk about specifics on what the town owns in fee and if there's interest. So management that we're doing still on our piece, we are using prescribed fire on a 1 to 3 year cycle for the grassland, and then for the shrublands and woodlands, it would be on a 4 to 8 year cycle, just depending on how things respond. And so the fire in the grassland is to really promote that forb and grass mixture that the birds that we're interested need. And it also, with the fire, it changes the chemical composition of the soil, which promotes the natural community that we're interested in. The fire in the shrubland areas promotes the pitch pine and oak. Oak is our keystone species in Massachusetts, the most important for wildlife of what we have left, just because it produces a hard mast, and then it's also really important for pollinators and insects as well. So oak is unique in that it's a southern species. It likes fire, and it does well with fire. So without fire and disturbance, we lose oak. And you can see that now, if anybody ever walks in Quabbin Park in the watershed there. Quabbin used to be dominated by oak, and now, because they've had a lack of fire on that landscape, you just see miles and miles of white pine regeneration, and that's it. And so from a biodiversity standpoint and a habitat standpoint, that's not what we're interested in. We want to promote oak. We need oak on the landscape, and that's sort of what we're after there for all those reasons. So yeah, so fire, mowing, and I'm sorry, does someone have a question? Okay, so fire, we will do some mowing and invasive plant control are things that we're currently still doing in the main grassland, and then the timber sale on the western portion. It's a 50-acre parcel that will happen sometime in the next year to 3 years, just depending on other priorities and when it goes out to bid. So that's sort of the general concept. You know, we have this globally rare, unique area, and we want to restore it back to and provide the highest quality habitat that we can for the number of species that we're interested in. So as far as on the town portion of what is owned in fee, and that Mass Wildlife owns a CR on, there are things that we could do. Some things would possibly provide income. Some things would possibly cost. One thing that I would recommend in the northwest, or just in the northern, I guess, of your parcel, there's the old field area. There's a lot of invasive plants in there that are spreading oriental bittersweet, multiflora rose, honeysuckle. Those sorts of things are carrying seed back into the WMA, where we've pretty much managed it. So those are plant species that I would recommend that we work towards eliminating from the parcel. We could also do some things where we would remove some of that young white pine to try to promote the pitch pine that is in there and the oak that is in there. So it would have a similar look to what we have on the northern part of our property. And then I have not walked as much through the wooded portions of the property. I've been down to the lake and seen some of the wetland areas, and along there, I would just recommend inventorying and trying to get a sense of what species might be there. But on the upland portion where there is oak and pine, the town could consider doing a timber sale, and that could be something they do on their own, or it could be something that is done as a partnership with us when we put out our timber sale. And that would potentially provide income for the town, and that could be used for however you all see fit, or it could be used to work on the northern part of the property, which would cost money. So there's a unique opportunity if the town is interested to promote oak and pitch pine in some of these rare natural communities. I think before you would consider moving in that direction, it would make a lot of sense to get good buy-in from people that are on that property and people that live nearby, because big machines on properties and changes the way people see that place, and that can be hard for people to adjust to. So yeah, I'm happy to take questions and have more of a conversation if that's what best fits this venue, or I can talk for a lot longer about that property. So
Do you have any, anything you can share with us on your?
yeah, I could try to share a map that I pulled up, and I did this remotely. I didn't get a chance to walk the property in the last weeks or two. I just based on the ortho and from memory. So you all see that?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is, I just made these polygons based upon the topography, the contours, and my knowledge of what's there. So the northern polygon that's in red, it's about 14 acres or so. And this is where it's that real thick white pine regeneration. There's the open areas are covered in, not covered, but have a medium infestation of invasive plants. And so one thing that, since this would cost money to treat the invasives and to remove the white pine and then leave any oak or pitch pine that's in there, I think I mentioned to Dennis, this project, this portion would probably rank pretty well for our habitat. Mass Wildlife has a habitat grant that they put out each year. This, I think, would rank fairly high on that. And so if it's something that the town wanted to pursue, it's something I could help facilitate. I think I'm allowed, I think the way that is, I'm allowed to give some assistance on putting together that, that application, or we have staff that maybe could. So that northern polygon, if we treated it the way that I'm suggesting, would look fairly similar to this area here. We would retain all the pitch pine that's in there, all the oak that's in there, and we would remove the white pine. And we could we stumped ours, so we actually had the stumps removed, graded, and then seeded. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could just have a machine come in to mow the white pine that's in this area. And then you'd have a lot of chips and stuff that would take longer. It would take longer to do for the response to show if you chip it all. You could also have a machine come in, cut that white pine and remove it, the smaller stuff out, and then they could chip it off site. And that doesn't, there's two reasons you don't necessarily want to put a whole lot of mulch onto the ground by grinding up those trees. One is that it prevents the vegetation response, or it slows it down. And the second is that you have really dry, barren soils. And the natural community that is established there likes them to be barren. So you don't necessarily want to add more nutrients back to those soils. So that's that unit, the 34 acre one that
we can talk to Liz Newlands about the applying for the grant, but from what I understood, we'll have to make sure I understood it correctly, is that the town didn't even have to apply for the grant because we automatically qualified for that. We'll have to get some clarification from her, but
it might be because of the CR. There's something that makes it, because the CR, I think, meets a lot of the grant, the stipulations in the grant. But yeah, so she would know. So that's something that I would, I mean, at the very least, if there was interest, I mean, pitch pine is a pretty rare tree species inland. There are a large number of rare species, moths all the way down, that are associated with it. And the fact that you have pitch pine regeneration there, I think is fairly important and significant. So I would definitely recommend at least contemplating that. And that could be enough, you could do that and people could see it, and you could do signage, informational signage to talk about the species that were there and why the work is being done. That would be less drastic, I think, for people. And then at some points you could potentially, we could have a burn plan written for that or some of the other southern portions, and then we could, Mass Wildlife could burn that periodically for the town to promote those species that I was talking about. So
We are applying for a grant. I believe we're going to get it for signage, for informational signage. We have our Eagle Scout here tonight that's going to spearhead the project. So you could
Cool.
work with him on that, and we could.
But I think, Dennis, going through and putting why it's being done as well as the fire plan on there would be fantastic, because I don't know how many times the rest of you have been asked, but I get asked all the time, why do we cut down these trees for birds? It
Yeah.
makes no sense to people, right? So I think something out there that educates them as to why, what has happened and what is happening, why it's being done and the science behind it would be very impactful to people that are utilizing.
Great
it.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think before you'd undertake anything, you don't want to surprise anybody, and you want to let people have their voices heard. Yeah, so so the 34-acre unit down below, the northern area of that is fairly heavy to white pine, and so I would recommend that we thin some of that white pine out there, open up the canopy. Oak needs not only fire and disturbance, but it's not going to do well in a super shaded condition like it is now. So if we want to promote oak regeneration, which I would suggest we would do there, because there is some real nice oak on that property, then I would suggest removing red maple, black birch, and white pine in that area to reduce the canopy. That's going to be a bigger, I mean, you'll see it when we do our portion, but it's not going to look super pretty for a few years. It'll be big machinery, and it'll look different for a while, but it is something that for us as an agency, we are legislatively mandated to provide, habitat and quality habitat for all the species that are endemic to Massachusetts. So there are species that will not survive if we don't have any of this sort of shrubby young forest habitat. So yeah, I mean, there's different ways to do that 34-acre unit, and I'd have to walk it more before we be able to finalize it. But the southern portion of that, I think, is really dry and oaky, at least in the southeast corner of what we own is, and I think the town portion is fairly similar on that tabletop there. So you could remove some of the pine and then use fire to help promote oak. You could do nothing and just kind of compare it to what we've done. But again, it would make sense if there was support from the town and the townspeople to continue the 50-acre sale that we're doing, to continue it even further into that.
Ben, when you come out to walk the property, can you let us know so anybody that's interested in tagging along will be able to do so?
Sure. Yeah, I should. Yeah, we're in the middle of our burn season, so we've been running around, so I haven't had enough time to finish the sale on our portion of the land. But next time I am out there and we're not burning, then I'll definitely reach out and we can spread the word if there's folks that want to walk it, and we can kind of look around more.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I noticed you don't have anything around the Vernal Pool itself, so that would be kind of left as it is.
Yeah, so basically because you have those steeper slopes that come down to the wetlands and to the lake, unless there was a real strong biological reason to manage in that, then typically we try to stay off steeper slopes and we try to buffer those areas. But I did write in the notes down below that it would be really good to reach out to our natural heritage herpetologist, and he is very excited about inventorying and looking. And I don't know if he's been out to these particular pools at all, just to see what's there. We could also have our restoration ecologist, who's really good at characterizing vegetation, to see if there's any rare species of plants down there. So I would just recommend, maybe it might be kind of interesting for the town to do some sort of inventory of what is there, just to have a sense of it. But at this point, as far as forest management, then I wouldn't recommend anything at this point down there. The other thing that the state herpetologist might be interested in, and he's created for the spadefoot toad, I think if people have walked our property, there's 3 vernal pools that he created specifically for spadefoot toad, and their biology is different in that they need water of a certain depth for a certain amount of time, and then the pools run dry so that they can complete their cycles faster than some of the others. And so he may have interest somewhere on the property in creating another one. I don't know. His parameters for those pools are pretty specific, but it might be an interesting project if there's something on the property that he thinks is interesting. So.
I think that's a great idea. I'm all for that. Now, what can the Conservation Commission do at their next scheduled meeting to help promote this, to move this along?
I think outreach is probably a first step. If you put something on your agenda just to discuss the potential and some of the reasons behind, and then maybe if there is interest, we could try to schedule a site walk for those folks that are interested in the town and talk about it and just see what's out there. I mean,
maybe
do
even
have some-
mailers to the people that live in that area, Dennis, so that if they see people,
We do have some of the neighbors here with us tonight, some of the butters.
I think that
Yeah.
we should notify them and then maybe have another, maybe an informational meeting on site, and, in the tour, Ben could walk us around.
yeah, I'd be happy to. And we could do it as a 2-part, where we can walk through some of what we've already, done management in, and I can explain what it looks like and, where it's going. And then we can, walk around some of what you guys have and talk about opportunities and partnerships there as well.
I think,
I think it would be a neat partnership for the town, just because it is such a unique opportunity. The town could make income if they were interested in that as well. I think sometimes that's more of a selling point to some people than the rare species or the habitat work.
I think most people like the habitat to be, stay as habitat, but if you are selling the enhancement of the habitat, I think that would be the way to go here, because I think that's really what we're trying to do. We're not really trying to make money.
Sure.
We're trying to enhance the habitat. That's pretty much what we're about. And hopefully the people would see that that's where this is headed. It's not just to sell off lumber and make money and, pillage the land.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely not that way for us, but sometimes it's easier for some of the towns to get something besides just habitat back. So yeah, that's why I just mentioned it. But
that would be a bonus,
Sure.
We have some of the North Pond residents, if they had any questions tonight, they could ask you. And we're trying to get the word out. This is part of getting the word out to the people on the North Pond, to get the feedback from them and try to garner their support. So I don't know, Scott, Sabrina, any of you North Ponders have any questions for Benjamin?
Yeah, Dennis. Dennis, I don't have any questions, but I honestly think it's a great idea, and I like the idea of having people go to go along with Ben. and walk the property and stuff. I mean, I've been here for years and I've never walked, like literally walked through the property. So I think the whole thing sounds great, to be honest with you. And looking at the big picture and long term, I have to say, yeah, it sounds great. And absolutely, I call it the western shore of North Pond. I can tell the neighbors and get the word out. I know for a fact that most of them would probably like to actually go with Benjamin and do the walk. I know we're all interested in what's going on over there and happening over there. I mean, you saw the support when the town wanted to purchase the property. So it just sounds great to me, so anything I can do to help along and whatever, that's pretty much it.
We appreciate that, Mike, and I know you go out there and pick up trash and things like that, and you're a good steward of the lake property. So if you could, get the word out there, talk to people and, explain to them how this would benefit everybody, the environment, and everybody included in the town, especially to get this going, partnering with the state. So they have already everything is in place. We wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be more than happy to. Yeah, definitely.
So Dennis, I have a question. This is John Sinay.
Hey, John.
How you doing? So I followed the progress on the wildlife management area since they started all the work out there, and I got to tell you, it's unbelievable. What I see happening with the pools, with the clearing. I went out there this winter and I saw what I believe that they're talking about, those special pine trees, the pitch pine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think anything they can do is going to be great. The question I got is, on the end of the lake, are they going to have access into that area via maybe trails?
There is.
Well, there's there's dirt bike trails.
We're going to try to eliminate those dirt bike trails, put up some fencing or whatever. And because part of the project, the Trails Grant project, is to fix the areas that have been eroded, that are causing some erosion to get into the lake. So
Yep.
Yeah,
that
hey,
would be
so
addressed.
there are ways to get from the lake up to the wildlife area. There's a couple of different paths. Some of them are overgrown, but there's definitely paths that you can use to get out there. I've walked a bunch of them the last couple of days. Actually, yesterday, Dennis, I was out there and I ran into the same young man 3 times riding around on his dirt bike. And, he had a valid question. He goes, "Show me the signs that say I can't ride." And I said, "Listen, you just can't ride." I said, "I'm on the Conservation Commission. We manage this property. You're not supposed to be on here." And he's like, "Well, you need to put up more signs." I think he's got a pretty valid point.
I hate putting up more and more signs, but if that's what it takes, then that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. It was too bad.
I would actually honestly like to go for a walk with someone. I've grown up here all my life. Now 36, I'll be 37 in May. I remember when there were cottages out here. I remember hanging out in these woods. This is my backyard out here. Some of the blue marks I see on trees kind of scare me. And I mean, honestly, I remember when this land used to be pretty much a lot of woods, and now we got grasslands. So I wouldn't mind going on a walk with someone and learning a little bit more about this property myself. I don't understand it as well as Benjamin there. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that stand with me on that one. I fought hard to save this land with a lot of the CRC members and in the North Pond project here. And, I value this property. It's a beautiful piece of property. And I'm all for thinning it out a little bit, but some of the blue marks on the trees, no, it just kind of scares me. you know, I look back there and it's like, oh man, they're gonna take down more of these freaking woods. I understand it's for a good cause. I would like to go out there with someone and learn a little bit more about it. And I probably speak for a lot of people around here.
I think you do, Scott. I think you speak for
I
quite a
think
few
the good-
people. And
Absolutely.
education is really important to educate everybody, myself included, to, you know, the benefits for the environment that this would produce.
Yeah. I'm here to help and support any way I can as well. So I'm happy to.
I think, Benjamin, I have a comment from the Conservation Commission. I don't live on North Pond. Part of this, the rescue project of the North Pond was the vista. That was the whole picture of the backdrop of all those trees. So if there's a significant thinning of those trees in view of what it used to be to what it will look like, you might get some pushback. It's important for you to be able to explain what it's going to look like down the line with maybe some examples and such in other parts of the state where you've done similar work. I think that will be a savior for people to be able to see the before and after pictures of similar projects. So just to keep that in mind, if it's going to look like a bomb went off, that's going to really irk a lot of people. And I know it can, and it is short term. In time, a lot of the stuff does come back. But that might be something useful for you to think about, to be able to provide some comparisons. The other part I had as a question is that when you said it's going to promote certain species, will it be demoting other species, and what will they be? So to be able to sort of talk about what's going to be good for some and what may sort of push some out, that might be something to talk about too.
Those are great points.
Thank you.
Yeah, that shoreline in the fall for foliage, and I know it's because of the maples. It's the whole mix, the oaks, the maples. It's beautiful.
Right.
So I'm not sure how much of that shoreline, how much of those really brilliant trees are going to be taken out. And when oaks get replaced with, if they replace with oaks, you get a pretty much a monotone color. So I don't know how that's going to look.
These are all really important things to consider. You definitely don't want to undertake something like this unless you have, like I've mentioned, buy-in from everybody that's used to it. It will be a change, absolutely. And that's something that we can try to work through and see if it's of interest. But I think there are important considerations for wildlife. Like I've mentioned before, this is a really rare and unique substrate in soil and site. And I think there's the opportunity to benefit. But you also have to consider the people that live there and, like you said, fought to protect this land. So yeah, those are all really good points. If we did do a site walk, I'm not sure the time frame that works best for the town or the Conservation Commission, but we do have, the breeding season is ramping up there, and birds that are coming from South America back up to this area to nest are starting to arrive or have arrived already. So it's a pretty unique time to be on the site in the morning. And you get to hear and see a lot of the things that we're talking about. A lot of the species that we're talking about will be on site. So if that's, convenient or works, the birds are usually singing from sun up until 9:30, 10 o'clock. You're still going to have a pretty good dawn chorus. So that's something else to consider. If you want to see the management, you can also hear the management.
Mr. Wally, you were essential to preserving this land. What do you say about this? John, are you there?
Is he muted? He's not there.
I don't see him.
His screen is there, but he's
Oh,
not.
he's gone, he's gone. Yeah. Never mind. Sabrina, you got anything you want to add? Oh, there's John. John, we were just asking about your thoughts on this thing. You were a big proponent and essential to preserving this property. What do you think about this?
I would think it's probably a good idea.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. You know,
And
when we
you-
look
I
at,
know how the white pines will take over if you let them.
oh yeah,
So you would be in favor, you would support this proposal?
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Sabrina, did you have something you could add, want to add?
Does any of this kind of fall on the already established trails out there? I'm just trying to look at the map and like map out where we did the walk.
right.
How would this
And I
affect
don't
the
know where-
trails?
Yeah, because like it was like Scott previously said, and someone else said, like we fought really hard to protect this area. Mostly so not only, well, it's beautiful, but also so we could walk on it. We have that wooded area because wooded area in South Lake it's starting to go away. So would this fall on the trail area?
Hey Sabrina,
we walked
where
on
we
day to day.
parked,
Yeah.
where we parked is right where the TH is up on South Long Yard.
Yeah.
And we kind of almost walked in along that red mark.
Yep.
So all those trees, looking at the map on the
Oh, wow.
right, is a really thick
Yeah.
thicket of white pine. And I think
Mhm.
that's part of where, Ben's saying we should probably do away with those or thin them pretty good.
Right. And the
Yeah.
other part
Mhm.
where the pink is kind of questionable whether we want to do that or not. And that's where a
Yeah,
lot
well,
of the
that's
trails
really
go.
undulating there anyways, right? And even Ben was saying they don't want to get involved in too much topography. So that's got a lot of elevation changes, that area.
Yeah, but there are also a lot of trails that do go into that pink zone, and then back out to wildlife management area. So I think that's what Sabrina's kind of questioning, so I do think it's a good idea to go back out there and walk again and look at the areas and see what impact it'll have to the trails so that people can be comfortable along the trails or, to see, you can lessen the impact in that pink area. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch of thinning of canopy, but if we want to take out some of the bigger white pines, that might be an option, I guess.
Yeah, that would serve multiple purposes because we could have Andre come out there and we could point out the different species for the signage and where we think that the marker should go, the wayfinding sign should go. So yeah, I think as soon as we get a site visit established, that'd be the next step.
Calendar.
If, are we allowed, the regular town people allowed to go on that walk?
Absolutely. More than welcome.
The more regular people, the better, I think.
I think that's the purpose behind the whole walk is to get as many people out there to hear the information as possible. That's why I was thinking maybe advertising for the walk. I know Michelle could probably put it on her group's site for CRC.
You may
Yeah.
want to
A
consider
lot of people,
videotape too.
right?
I
I
did
have a
invite,
I have a quick question, Dennis. Sorry to interrupt you.
go ahead.
But outside of that pink area, to the right of it, I'm looking at the map right now. That's all, there's some woods there. Now, that's planned on being clear cut and made grassland? Or are you just gonna thin that as well?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So that the land to the east of that pink is all owned in fee by the state, and it's not any of the town land. And so that land is not slated to be clear cut and turned into grassland. No, it's slated to be thinned to promote oak and shrubland along the edges. So we'll be reducing the canopy there. And so that's mainly going to be removing the red maple that's in there is a pretty small component. It's probably less than 2% of what's there. It's the white pine that we're going to mostly remove, and then some of the oaks that have damaged crowns from that ice storm a while back. So for us, we're trying to leave groups and patches of oak, and we're leaving all the biggest and the healthiest oak. We're not taking any of that out. So for us, it's just to leave a bunch of trees that can produce a lot of hard mast and help with that next cohort, that next generation of oak. If you walk through there, there's not a lot of oak regeneration at all. So that's the problem across the state, is you have some oak forest with these giant grand oak trees that are 80 to 120 years old, and there's nothing in the understory. There's no advanced oak regeneration for a lot of those reasons I talked about before. So if we don't do something, if we don't start to do something statewide about this, then we're gonna, when those big oaks senesce in the next couple decades, we're gonna have black birch and red maple and white pine, and that's gonna be the dominant canopy. And without oak, we don't have acorns, and without acorns, bears, deer, turkey, grouse, woodcock, squirrels, all blue jays, all those species that are dependent upon that hard mass to make it through the winter, we lose them entirely. We're not going to lose those game species, but we lose that food source, which without American chestnut, that was their most important food source. So
now, when you go to thin that, is this going to end up like the east side of the property up the hill as well?
No, the portions of it will be like that, yes. But my thought is that we're not gonna. So that canopy was reduced anywhere from 60 to 70%, depending upon where you are on that parcel. So in this parcel on the west corner, we're going to reduce the canopy on the edges will be 60%, and I think that's where a lot of people are seeing all those blue marks, because there's a lot of smaller trees along that edge. But in the interior, outside of the pine, the canopy reduction is going to be anywhere from 30 to 40%. So we want to retain more oak, and there's in that south, basically the central line, which is here south. I'd say this area is some of that is really nice oak, and if we walk through that, or you walk through it, you'll see there's portions where you walk through where there's not much for blue marking at all, because we want those oaks to be there. We want the blueberry that's gonna, that's kind of there now to have a chance to really establish itself. So.
All right. It sounds good.
Sure. I mean, I understand the way things are in the woods. It's beautiful in there, and there are species that we'll call that home. But when you look at this parcel, this chunk of woods on a landscape scale, it's not large contiguous forest that is really important. And so that's something that we consider when we're looking at doing management, is that are we going to punch a hole in something that is contiguous in a corridor? And this is a fragmented landscape already, and it has these really unique soils that will promote, globally rare natural communities and the species that are associated with them. So I think that's really important for us to at least consider from a landscape scale. So.
Are there any other commissioners that have any questions for Benjamin?
Not I.
Brian, do you and Andre want to segue into this with the trails?
Sure,
grant?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think that to echo Sabrina, that was my only question, I think, is how would that impact this potential project with the trail systems? But looking at it, it almost looks like it'd be nice to overlay that pink and red area onto that trail marking that we already have. But if it's a transitional area anyway, the left edge of the pink, it probably wouldn't impact any of his work, I would think. But yeah, Andre can tell you what he's come up with so far. We've done some walking and mapping.
Hey, Dennis, can I just jump in? You guys good with everything that I've done? I just would sign off if I'm able to. I'm happy to stay on if people are gonna have more questions or if what we're trail stuff's gonna need to have questions answered, but if not, I might sign off.
I think we're good for tonight, Ben, but we could think of more before our next get together. Nah.
Sure, I'm happy to talk offline
Yeah.
too, and we can meet on site or talk on the
Yeah.
phone, whatever works out before
I
we
just
have.
think it'd be more organized if we gathered some more questions for that time frame, so we don't keep you waiting.
Okay, sounds great.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it
everybody.
tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Thank you.
So yeah, we have a town meeting coming up on the 18th, and there's a warrant article for $15,000 for the trails grant. As you know, we also have a trails grant, but we won't even know if we get the trails grant till the middle of June or end of June. So it's important that we get the $15,000 from the CPA money. And if we get the trails grant on top of it, that's fantastic. But at least we can get things rolling, because if it gets voted approved on the 18th, the 19th, we can start the paperwork and start things going on it. So we need to get, I don't think it's going to be a problem, but you never know at town meetings. If
Right.
we could get as much support as we can there to vote in favor of that. It's pretty early on in the meeting too, so you don't have to hang around through all the budget stuff, I don't think.
Yeah.
You
Do you
just
think
want
that
to,
would be, do you think there's some value in having Andre there?
yes, I absolutely think Andrea should be there. In case there's any questions. Chris will be fielding most of the questions on it. It's,
Well, maybe I won't be there,
Okay.
Dennis. I think I have an
the
appointment.
chair- if they allow him into the meeting, that is. As the chair, he'll be, he's the one who'll be requesting the 15,000, and he's also the chair of the CPC, so he's wearing two hats that night.
Uh-oh.
But as far as the trails and what we're talking about doing the forest management, we want to make sure that they work together. We don't want a conflict on that. That's why I invited Benjamin to come, so we can make sure that, I hate to use this expression, everybody's on the same page, but if we're all on the same page and we all know which direction we're headed in and there's no surprises. I know I've seen forest cutting before, and yes, sometimes it looks like a bomb went off when it first happens. And sometimes that's the best forest cutting plan on the table. I've seen ones that look fantastic that have been not good forest cutting plans. So you can't, just by looking at it, you really can't evaluate it. You really have to have a knowledge of what they're looking to do and what they're trying to grow. And it's a big picture. So I think education is going to be important to get this information out.
Well, hey, Dennis, so kind of the way I took it is he kept using the word partnership, right? So really it's town property. They're going to help us develop a plan, but ultimately we're going to have the input and the yay or nay, whether or not to go through with it anyways, right?
Oh, right.
Absolutely. The Conservation Commission is the caretaker of the property, so they have the final say so. But, before the Conservation Commission sticks their neck out on anything, I want to make sure that all the cards are on the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You got any questions, Andre? Do you want to?
I'm just trying to figure out how this conservation will kind of affect the overall project, and just trying to make sure that my project's not really going to interfere with any of this.
Do you plan on putting some blaze marks on the trails themselves in the near future, so that when we go out there, we can, walk the trails and find out where the forest cutting would start and stop and how it would affect it?
Yeah.
That'd be
We just took a walk down there not too long ago and kind of marked some spots we were kind of took some points of interest in.
Andre, you want to share your screen and show them what you have?
Yeah, I actually have a little slideshow, I guess, of some of the spots of interest I kind of saw. Hold on. I'm allowed to share screen. There we go. So this is like the beginning of my project. We're planning on putting a kiosk here. This is a kiosk I found at the Dismal Brook Wildlife Preservation in North Granby. This is what I'm planning on putting in front of the overall project. This is sort of like the sort of header of the project right here.
Great.
To kind of like mark out the trail, put the map there, just kind of give people like newcomers here to kind of like a rundown of the trail, give them a map. Kind of just some info on the area itself, maybe some wildlife info, maybe some info on the history of some parts of the area. So I thought that'd be a pretty nice thing to put right here. Here, let me run down some of the points of interest I found. So at the beginning of the trail, remember last time we took a walk down there, I took a picture of this. There was a sort of overhang right here, sort of a tree split. I think I'm getting some people to try to cut that down, get rid of that
I
before.
think Sabrina called dibs on that one.
Yeah. Then,
It's a balance beam.
yeah, for sure. Probably my birds walking across it. There's some more, just again, just trees that fell down on the trail itself. I think we can just clear up. I don't think it should be too hard or really too effective in the overall area. Then I noticed some bricks that were kind of just littered across. So this is towards like more towards like the shoreline. I was walking down there. I noticed a lot of bricks, just random debris that was kind of stuck around there. I know one of our other scouts in our troop, Jameson Crowley, did a sort of eco project down the area too. It was sort of cleanup of the area of like trash and stuff. I know some trash as well on the trail. It was on some debris. I thought we could possibly clear that up as well on the trail as we're going along with it. Again, just more debris and bricks I noticed along the trail. And this is towards the sort of old dock section of the trail. There's still some parts of like the old docks there. As you can see, there's some parts of old wood. I don't really know if that's something that we should be really concerned in, or if you want to take interest in that, but I just thought that we could throw out the idea there. Towards the end of the trail, there's some more, just a lot of down trees on this trail. I thought we could just try to clear up. I don't really know if some of them we want to leave there to kind of prevent some vehicles to move in, or if you want to leave some trees there or remove some. Then down by the shore, there I noticed a lot of large pine that fell down in part of the trail. I mean, this stuff we could probably just carve a hole through. Just cuts off the end here, not worry about the whole tree itself, but just kind of carve a path through these, because these things were just absolutely massive. I mean, like from like here was about like good, like maybe almost 3 feet, honestly. It was pretty good height. Down by the vernal pool, I was planning on putting a placard right here to kind of mark the vernal pool and kind of show the importance of the vernal pool to some people who are walking down the trail. Kind of just, again, it's just a very broad overview of just what I'm going to be doing here. Let's see what else. Again, just more random debris on the trail itself. Just, this is an old fence I noticed down by the waterfront, which again, we might not have to remove it, but I think personally, I think it'd be nice if we got rid of that as well. Just again, more down trees. That's just basically the general overview of all this. And I'm thinking after we remove a bunch of the down trees from the project itself, we could eventually end up chipping that all down in like a wood chipper. We'd have to find somebody who has one of those. And possibly you could do is lay down some wood chips towards like the front of the trail, or possibly even more down the trail to kind of keep the trail a bit more well managed. I know some trails have, it's not entirely necessary, but I think that'd be a good use for the trees, just kind of get rid of them instead of just throwing them some random place or chipping them off. Also planning on putting some trail markers on some of the trees. Although, again, these are more of like the ones you nail onto the tree itself. These ones last a bit longer than just spray painting the tree and marking it. And I think this would be a pretty good idea, but I'm not sure how exactly it would affect the trees itself, or if that would be allowed by the commission itself. So I'd have to discuss that. And sorry if I'm moving a bit fast here. Sorry, guys. Let's see here. there's this app I actually use. It's called All Trails, and but this is kind of like how I'm gonna be kind of running down the trail. This is sort of, it'll helps you map out the trail that you walk on, and you can put like certain points of interest on the map itself, maybe like mark certain locations. So this is kind of like me running down the trail last week. Me and Brian took a quick walk down the trail, and you can actually mark points of interest on the map itself. So I'm thinking we could do that for my Eagle project and hand those copies out to people to like help get them a bit more organized on the overall project itself. It's very interesting thing. Again, All Trails, it's a free app on Play Store. I mean, whatever app really. It's very amazing, I guess. Do we have any questions?
Hey, Andre, were you able to get the distance on those trails? I know All Trails does it. You just jotted
Yes,
it
you
down
can
so that
actually
each one
get
of those, you know,
the,
the distance?
You can actually get the distance of the actual trail itself and the amount of time it takes to walk a certain trail. So I'm thinking of doing, again, this is just a sort of draft of what I'm going to be doing. But here, I don't know if I can pull it up.
Yeah,
This is
no, I know the app. I'm just wondering if you had already done that.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
That's a great thing for hikers to know.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking we could put on the kiosk, what I
Right.
mentioned earlier.
Or you could do like different loops, like they did at Dismal Brook. You've
Yeah.
seen the things down there. So they have the different colors that are so far, and so people can decide which loop they want to walk on. Or
Yeah, again, this map I have right here is just a very broad, just general map. I guess it's a draft. It's not completed. We're gonna put some more stuff on there, get some more info on it, and
yeah, like you say,
polish
different
it off.
points of interest, or
Yeah.
mark down the map so people can walk to a certain thing they want to see. Or
Mm-hmm. Like over here is the old waterfront. Down here is where the vernal pool is. We could start just marking some points of interest along the map and just kind of point it out to people.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I think it'd be perfect.
It looks fantastic.
Is there any thought given to perhaps keeping some of the lumber, have some of the cut trees to be put aside so that you can build things with that sort of reflects on what was taken from here that could be put to use in there? Benches, markers, whatever else you need to do, like some of the structures that you showed,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even the spit rail, that bench there that you have,
Yeah, we were also planning on putting some benches down.
Would they be
Right,
willing to
have the
work
market
with
locations.
the town to say, here's this much towards that?
Mhm.
Is that just a thought,
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're thinking about reusing the stuff that comes down, either wood chip it for, areas, or place it again across some of the trails we don't want to use, some of the dirt bike trails. And, we're open for suggestions for sure.
Hey, so there was one of the scouts did a project up in Sandusfield at York State Reservation up there, or State Pond, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And what they did is they brought in a logging company to do some forest management. But part of their contract with that logging company was they got lumber out of the deal, not just trees, but lumber, right?
Mhm.
So I think it was like a percentage of the take, and for some reason 15% sticks in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but that's something along that lines. And what was really great is when this particular kid did his project, all of that lumber was used for that project. So I guess it goes back to conversations with Ben and the organizations or the companies that they use to come in and do that forest management, and whether or not we can negotiate something with them, because they're obviously taking it to a mill, right?
Yeah.
So can we get a piece of whatever comes out of there to bring back in and use it? Because you want to use native lumber in the area anyways, if you're going to build
Yeah,
something.
for sure.
Idea.
So I know we're running a little bit late here, but Yeah, we had a generous offer from one of the neighbors that he would get a dumpster if we could get the old docks out of the water. We looked at them last time we were there. We started to pull some of them out, and it was a monster trying to get them up that hill, up the slope and into the mule. And we decided at that time that the best option seemed to be to get the town boat barge, cut up the pieces small enough, put them on the barge, and then bring them someplace we could easily offload them on shore. And if we had a dumpster there waiting for us, and the neighbor's willing to pay for the dumpster, it seems like a great opportunity. At this point, we were still looking for options of where we could offload it. One of the original suggestions was at North Ramp, which would take some doing, with the traffic there and the timing and everything. But Scott came up with an idea that he has an area that he could park the dumpster in his driveway, which isn't, far from the area. And they could cut it up as a little bit of a slope to walk up. But I don't know, it is an alternative if we want to look at that. I think, we should probably do something with that sooner than later to take Mr. Hess up on his offer.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
I'd be more than willing. You guys can dump a dumpster here, and I got a little bit of a slope, but I got steps and I got a gradual hill, and I got plenty of beachfront, and we could bring any docks or whatever. We can cut it up and bring it up the hill from there. I don't mind that at all.
Andre, would you want to incorporate that into your project, or do you want to keep that separate?
I'd have to think about that and again, it's all about managing all these different kind of things.
Somebody's going to have to organize it. Timing is crucial on these, how long the dumper is going to be there for.
Yeah. For sure.
Let me know if you're interested. If not, then, we'll go in a different direction, but
yeah, I'll definitely look into it.
Look into that. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Any more questions on the overall project or anything we could add? Again, up for suggestions.
I just gotta say, man, you got some good ideas there, and I approve of it, and I like it. Go for it.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, same here. Same here, Andre. Looks really nice. Very, very nice. Appreciate all your work.
Yeah,
Yep. Thank you.
looks great.
All right.
So Chris, I don't know if you want to, it's getting kind of late, if you wanted to close it up now, or if you wanted to continue, it's up to you.
Well, we could close it up now, and if, we'll make sure that we get word out to, oops, sorry about that. We'll get word out to the people that were here tonight, to maybe if they want to come and do the site visit, walk, and get word out to other people. They can come back with questions or recommendations or whatever they want to have. That'd be great. And I think,
I'd like to put it on the next normally scheduled conservation meeting, but we have so many items on the agenda hearings that I don't see that it's going to be possible.
I don't know if that'd be the best venue for it anyway. I mean, we're really not gonna be making any decisions there, right? So, I mean, I think on-site would be the best, for people to attend in person at the site and actually walk around and see what they've done in some places, what it's going to become, and what they're planning to do to make it, become the way that the other places are. And as far as Andre's project, I mean, he's, going to probably have some questions about the trails and, how the forest cutting would impact the trails. So we're really talking about two different things anyway.
I think we're off to a really good start. We had quite a few people at this meeting.
Right.
You know how hard it is to get people to attend meetings without offering free cigarettes and beer. So
Pizza.
I'd really like to thank everyone for attending and for all the great input. And we'll continue. Hey, John. Continue the conversation in the near future. We'll let everybody know. I got you on a mailing list. when Benjamin comes to town so we can get out in the field and actually see the areas that we've been discussing.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay. Anybody
I
want to make a
actually
motion?
had a quick question. I'm sorry to jump in. I was just wondering, I was advised if I wanted to bring up an issue or a question in regards to a conservation issue that you attended meeting, is there any open forum for that?
Not at this meeting, Mary. This is a work session. We're not dealing with any conservation enforcement issues or any hearings or anything like that. So, no, this is definitely not the appropriate format for that. Thank you.
Oh, then could you just advise us on the process if possible?
You've already notified the DEP, the MACC, the Conservation Commission. I think you've done plenty. Thank you.
No, we just have questions though in regards to understanding.
You can direct your questions. The email I sent you, you have people you can talk to at town hall if you have specific questions that aren't conservation issues. I think we've addressed all the conservation issues that you have been emailing me. So thank you very much. I appreciate you for contacting the Southwick Conservation Commission. And thank everybody very much for coming tonight. And we'll continue this conversation and continue to enhance and protect the environment and that beautiful piece of property on North Pond that we were so fortunate to acquire. And
That's
thank
awesome.
everybody for that help also.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Amen.
guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Second.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Fourth and fifth.
Brian, fourth.
Okay.